The increasingly popular e-cigarette. Here in France, for instance, an estimated 1.5 million people puff on them on a regular basis. The market was worth about €275 million last year. Over in the US, e-cigarettes are just starting to take off, and already tobacco heavyweights have spotted the potential and are making sure they'll take the lion's share of the burgeoning market. France 24's Philip Crowther reports now from Virginia.
At one time, we did have 5 generations on the farm at one time when I was little. But like I say, we're over 100 years old.
In Virginia, tobacco farms like that of Mark Spears are still part and parcel of the economy, and that has always been the case. Philip Morris International, the tobacco heavyweight, will make this harvest into cigarettes.
I reckon the Indians, helped on the tobacco growing, and that's where everybody started from. I mean, that's where the economy started from. If it wasn't for tobacco, the world would be in a world of trouble.
This region still lies at the heart of the cigarette industry. Lucky Strike was born in the state capital, Richmond, and the company that controls half of the tobacco market in the US is here, as is the factory that produces 50% of the cigarettes smoked in the US. But it was independent companies that first explored e-cigarettes. This one produces everything in Richmond. Customers are invited to try all sorts of exotic flavors to then maybe kick the more traditional habit. The small US-based e-cigarette manufacturers are up against the big tobacco companies. Reynolds, for example, now distributes these nationwide, the Vuse e-cigarette. Lorillard is another of the big tobacco companies. It has its own, the Blue e-cigarette. And Philip Morris is also now working on its very own brand. All 3 big tobacco companies, of course, also come with very big advertising budgets. The poster boy for Blue is actor Stephen Dorff.
For us smokers, times have changed.
Advertising is not at all regulated, meaning companies can play on the rediscovered freedom for smokers.
Our desire to explore.
For the first time in 2 decades, the tobacco industry can make its products seem cool and glamorous.
After all, this country was founded on free will. Embrace it. Chase it.
Okay. Based in Richmond, Brian Haynes is a lawyer and lobbyist who works for the big tobacco groups.
If I'm a company, rather than lose my customers to a competitor, why not keep them? Particularly when you have customers in this industry being notoriously brand loyal.
He says that in the next few years, a market that sees new e-cigarette brands created almost weekly could be dominated by the usual suspects.
There also is a level of expertise that these companies have in the tobacco industry. And although an electronic cigarette is not a tobacco product in the conventional sense of the term, it is a tobacco product defined by the government. And so there's a level of experience both dealing on the product composition side as well as on the regulatory side that I think would be perceived as advantageous for these companies.
Experience in advertising, too, from the time this kind of thing on television was still allowed. There is no clarity yet on whether electronic cigarettes are harmful or not, but the lack of nationwide legislation gives them a lot of freedom. Locally, laws are being passed in Virginia, for example, banning the sale to minors.
There is no law on the federal level, otherwise we wouldn't need one in Virginia. If you would walk around the mall a few weeks ago, any mall in Northern Virginia or America, you'd see teenagers walking around smoking vapor electronic cigarettes. And there was no law to stop them from doing so. So I decided to write a law for it and got the help from many of my colleagues, and we passed a bill earlier this year.
For big tobacco, the risk is to miss out on the big transition, if it is indeed to happen. Cigarette companies will have another industry in mind, photography. Fujifilm adapted to the digital age, Kodak did not, and a century of tradition went up in smoke.
Now, for more on this, I'm joined from Geneva by Dr. Edouard Tursan-Despeigne from the World Health Organization. Hello, thank you very much indeed for being with us. Now, as Philip Crowther said in the report we were just listening to, it's unclear whether e-cigarettes are harmful. What's your take on this? What's the WHO's take on e-cigarettes? Are they or are they not harmful?
Well, WHO views electronic nicotine delivery systems, of which e-cigarettes is just one form, as an evolving frontier. It's filled with promise, and at the same time, it's filled with threat for tobacco control. There is a promise which is not unproven, which is still unproven, as to its worth in helping people quit tobacco. And it is a threat because the tobacco industry, particularly big tobacco moving into this market, will try to hook young people and people who are currently non-smokers by presenting this product as a totally inoffensive, as something which is about vapor. Vapor is the way that they call it. And when you talk about it in those terms, you negate the reality that the aerosol which is emitted from those products is not inoffensive. It is not just steam. It contains nicotine. It contains poisons. It contains other particulates which can be very, very dangerous for the lives of fetuses, as well as young children, as well as children who are in the development phase. So young adolescents can also be affected adversely by this. So you're
saying it's not inoffensive, but surely it is better than smoking real cigarettes?
Let me give you perhaps an analogy. It would be like if you smoke cigarettes, you were to jump from the 20th floor of a building, but maybe using e-cigarettes, we're not quite sure which floor you're dropping from. It's probably not the 20th floor, but maybe you're dropping from the 5th floor or the 4th floor. We do not yet know how dangerous this product can be, especially for young people.
I'd like to talk about regulation in just a moment, but since you mentioned big tobacco companies, they are trying to get in on the market. Are you concerned that with clever marketing, they could make it something, for want of a better word, cool, and people will keep smoking rather than eventually quit smoking altogether?
Well, I think the tactics of the tobacco companies has been proven over very, very many years. And there has been a parallel to using snus, which is a smokeless tobacco, where they were trying to promote that product, which is a tobacco product, as something which was inoffensive. And now we're starting to see exactly the same model being applied with electronic cigarettes. And indeed, the gentleman who was speaking before, the actor that they're using in their advertisement, who talked about the freedom. This is what the United States in this particular case was built on. This is where we want people to express your freedom. And it is a freedom for what? It would be a freedom to be affected and to become addicted to nicotine. In e-cigarettes, we don't know yet what the total benefits will be and what the total, but we have a fair idea that this thing is not at all inoffensive.
Trouble is, the US is one of the countries that doesn't have to follow your recommendations on tobacco. They haven't ratified your framework convention on tobacco control. So what can you do to put pressure on the authorities there?
Well, I think it's not a question of putting pressure on any authorities. I mean, countries will make their own decisions about what is best for them. The role of WHO is to point out, and we've done this in this paper, which will be discussed with the countries that will be at the Convention of Parties to the convention in October. And what we have put to them is the best scientific evidence which shows the benefits and the potential benefits to help people quit. But the potential dangers that the tobacco industry might be trying to hook young people as well as current non-smokers into to take up tobacco.
And apart from encouraging countries to regulate, what do you hope to get out of that meeting in October?
Well, we hope to get more clarity from countries. We hope to get a better understanding of where countries see where they want to go. WHO is making not so much recommendations, but making up this paper up for discussion. we will take our so-called marching orders, if we will take it from countries, but we have put a discussion paper out there, and it's now up to the experts from the countries to participate into this discussion. And I, for one, am really looking forward to those discussions.
Okay, thank you very much, Dr. Edouard Tursan-Despeigne, for joining us from the World Health Organization. That's it for Focus, and that's it for our 2-hour live show. I'll be back, though, in a few minutes with a full news roundup. Don't go away.